Well, good morning, everyone. Thomas Montgomery. We get together with our distribution partners most weekday mornings at this time, 8 o'clock Central, Mondays through Fridays, and to go through different discussion points, whether we're talking about strategy, sharing success stories, tactics. Essentially, what we're trying to do is keep our ears to the street and understand what are the concerns, the challenges, the objections that you, our regional vice presidents and our white label partners are facing, and try to proactively address those for the entire group. Recently, we've made some changes in our service model. We've actually enhanced it, which includes specifically setting up one-on-one calls on a weekly basis. So if you've not scheduled a one-on-one call, it is essential that you do so, regardless if you're an RVP or a white label partner, so we can discuss progress, address any questions, concerns, and make sure that we're on track. With that being said, today's topic is revisiting the 3 C's. So what we've covered before and covered recently is that you probably will want to focus on the Access to Capital program as a resource for small businesses. It's essentially a free program. There's no upfront cost to the client to enroll. They have a guaranteed capital raise. There's no minimum credit score, no minimum time in business, no minimum revenue even for them to enroll. We've talked about the simplicity of getting them enrolled in terms of getting the agreement signed, which is between you and them as a white label partner, and then getting the funding application into us so we can get them their first tranche of financing right away, typically within just a couple days. And that's good because their first tranche of financing provides the capital injection for you to get paid. You will decide as a white label partner how much the deposit is for them to pay you after their first tranche of capital that is used for paying you for development of the loan package. Typically, it's $2,500. So for pretty much every client you enroll, you should be getting $2,500 within just a few days of them enrolling, even though they have had no upfront cost. Once they have paid you the $2,500, then we will take care of the implementation. And the implementation is using the award-winning curriculum developed by the FDIC, promoted by the SBA. And I used to teach this as a college course, right? And then that took a full semester. Now we've summarized it down into 4 modules, which we've talked about recently. The first module, we work on building out their business plan. Second module, building out their business credit, getting them at least $10,000 under their EIN. Module 3, which is in week 3, is building out their financial statements. Excuse me. And module 4 is banking and money, pulling it all together. So what you and I do as technical advisors is help build financial literacy, which is important and needed. Secondly, we help build lender compliant loan packages, and the structure in which we do that is through that 4-week curriculum that I just summarized. And if you haven't gone through it yourself, I encourage you to do so. And then ultimately, though, what we do is we help address credibility factors, because some clients will come to you and I, and they don't qualify for what they're wanting. Well, why wouldn't they qualify? Well, it's the same thing that you and I learned in school. If you want to borrow money, you have to be cognizant of the 3 C's. Now, not all sources of capital require all 3 C's, but we certainly need to have at least one of the C's, and the more that we have, the stronger they are, the better. And so those 3 C's in summary are credit, capacity, which is the same as cash flow, and collateral. So with all of that as a preface, today's discussion is talking about our Collateral Support Program. It hasn't changed, so this is not necessarily new information, but many of you are new. So this may be an introduction, it may be a refresher, but it's important to understand. So thus far in our conversation, we've recapped the big picture of who we are and what we're doing, and the 3 C's. So If we go through the process and we identify that there is an inconsistency between the client's capital raise goals and their collateral that's needed, then we will likely introduce to them the Collateral Support Program. This is something that you should be familiar with, but you don't need to be trained enough to go pitch it. You make $5,000 each time one of your clients enrolls in the Collateral Support Program. So there's certainly some financial reward for you, but it's not your burden to be an expert in it. But you need to be aware of what it is, why we would recommend it, and enough of how it operates. So that's our goal today. So this is a 2-page flyer on the Collateral Support Program. The second page is probably a little more helpful than the first. And so let's read through some of it and then certainly address the questions, comments, concerns that you have. But again, let's regroup. When does the Collateral Support Program become part of the client discussion? That's the question. The answer is if we determine that they have a collateral shortfall. In other words, the amount of funding that they want and the type of funding that they want, they don't have enough collateral to qualify for. So second question, do all clients need the Collateral Support Program? The answer is absolutely not. It's on an individual one-by-one basis, need basis that we assess their file and determine if they have a collateral shortfall. So let's read through the information here and then vet through your questions, comments, concerns. The Collateral Support Program was designed by former SBA and SBDC advisors and SCORE mentors to enable financing for small businesses that might otherwise be unavailable due to a what? A collateral shortfall. A collateral shortfall. So this is the problem that we're addressing with the Collateral Support Program, is a collateral shortfall. The program, meaning the Collateral Support Program, provides a portfolio of revenue-producing accounts receivables to the balance sheets of participants, meaning clients, while concurrently improving their borrowing capacity with a stronger income statement. I'll dig more into the mechanics of that in just a moment. Collateral is often required by lenders offering small business loans. For working capital loans or lines of credit, the amount of collateral support can be determined as the difference between the proposed loan amount and the value that the lender assigns to the working capital assets, such as AR and inventory. In the event that the borrower does not repay the loan, the lender collects against the collateral as a form of repayment. So let's talk practically. So let's say you have a client that wants to go buy a commercial office building. And the commercial office building's $1 million. We'll just use round numbers. Well, as long as that commercial office building appraises for $1 million, then we don't have a collateral shortfall, do we? Because the actual purchase of the asset will be pledged as collateral. And if for some reason the client doesn't pay as agreed, then the lender can foreclose on the property. Now, does the lender want to foreclose on the property? Of course not. That's a headache, that's a pain. No one wants that. But that, of course, is protecting the lender in case of the borrower's default. Similar can be said for many types of equipment. Let's say they want to buy company vehicles, company trucks, different types of machinery. If it's tangible type of purchases, which we'll call equipment financing, then again, it can serve as the collateral in many cases for the loan. Great. But what you and I will often face are clients that either want, in addition to equipment and or real estate financing, or in lieu of it, just separate, they want just some cash, what you and I will call working capital. They want money, not necessarily to buy specific tangible assets like real estate or equipment. Well, that's where collateral comes into play. So let's turn around and say that the client wants $100,000 of working capital. Great. Do they have $100,000 of collateral to pledge? Because the bank is not a fool, right? The bank knows when they wire $100,000 over to your client's account, that money will probably be spent. And that's kind of envisioned and expected, right? Nothing wrong with that. But if that client ends up not paying as agreed, can that lender come back and repossess the $100,000 that it's already been spent, that's already gone? Of course not. It's gone. Therefore, that's where collateral comes into play. So how we determine if there's a collateral shortfall is quite simple, quite objective, quite fact-based. We can look at the client's balance sheet and/or personal financial statement to see what assets there are that can serve as collateral. And to no surprise, there's a lot of small businesses that's light in that area. And that historically has prevented many small businesses from being able to be approved for loans. But you and I have the ability to solve that problem. So if the client does have a collateral shortfall, we can add assets, and I'm going to get into granular detail, so worry not. We can literally add assets in the form of accounts receivables that will then be on their balance sheet. So there are three primary benefits to the client of participating in the Collateral Support Program. One of which is what I just stated. We're going to transfer over, usually in portfolios of $100,000 increments, accounts receivables. I hate to even say this because it feels like I shouldn't have to say it, but obviously everything that we do is legal, ethical, moral, and compliant. So when we say that we're going to put $100,000 of accounts receivables on the client's balance sheet, it is not a wink, wink, gray type of transaction. You don't want to be involved with those types of transactions. We certainly don't want to be. So when we say that we're going to transfer over in portfolios of $100,000 increments, in other words, however many they need to resolve the collateral shortfall, we're actually doing it. We're actually doing it. It's real. It's real accounts receivables going on their balance sheet. Well, what has happened now is the balance sheet, which shows assets and liabilities of the business, of course, looks much stronger because now they have more assets than they had before, and those assets can be pledged as collateral. So that's benefit one of three to the client. And that's huge in itself. But let's move on. The second benefit to the client is it improves their liquidity. And you'd say, well, how does that work, Tom? That doesn't make sense to me. Well, here's how it works. Liquidity is typically measured by lenders as cash and cash equivalents. So let's say that we just gave the client $100,000 of cash. And they went, and that's not what we're doing, but using that as an example. So if we just gave them $100,000 of cash and they went and put it in their business bank account, are they more liquid than they were before? Of course, because they have $100,000 of cash. Excuse me, but remember, liquidity is defined as cash and cash equivalents. So then one would have to ask, well, what is a cash equivalent? Accounts receivables count as a cash equivalent. So no, we are not going to go drive up to them, open the back door of the van and unload $100 bills and give them $100,000 cash. That's unrealistic. That's too good to be true. Sounds pretty shady. But can we in fact put $100,000 of accounts receivables on their balance sheet to accomplish goal number one, which we've discussed, and also improve their liquidity? Absolutely, because that same portfolio of $100,000 of accounts receivables not only improves their balance sheet, which we've discussed, number one, but also technically improves their liquidity, because liquidity is defined as what? Cash and cash equivalents, and accounts receivables count as a cash equivalent. The third and final benefit that I can think of, or the primary benefits to the client of the Collateral Support Program, in addition to improving their balance sheet and secondly, improving their liquidity, is that it is income producing. So those accounts receivables, they can collect off of. They could collect through their own efforts. They could use a collection agency. They could use a litigation firm. to litigate, to sue the people that owe them the files contained in that portfolio. But these are real receivables. And so thus the client now really has $100,000 of accounts receivable. It's not a wink, wink, gray transaction. It's true money owed. Therefore, the goal would be to convert from receivables to cash. No different than if you and I went out and started a lawn care business. I guess wrong time of the year, wrong season to start a lawn care business, but stick with me for the example. And we go get a bunch of contracts for HOAs or whatever to pay us all this money. Well, now do they owe us money? Yes, but have they paid us? No. Well, would you rather have the money or the promise for them to pay? Well, the promise for them to pay is much better than not, but cash is king, right? So what we want to do is get them to pay their bills. Well, that's the third benefit to the client of getting in the collateral support program, excuse me, in addition to strengthen their balance sheet, in addition to creating greater liquidity on paper, it also should create positive cash flow because they're going to be able to collect off of that money. Now, we're certainly not saying that they'll collect dollar for dollar off of those funds, but they certainly should be able to collect some, if not most. So that is a quick overview. Let's go through the FAQs that are listed here and then get into your questions. What kinds of businesses are eligible? We're focused on obviously helping small businesses that are in the Access to Capital program because we want to help them address their collateral shortfall so they can qualify for a minimum of $100,000. The cost of the well, first we need to figure out what their collateral shortfall is. And that's a simple mathematical formula, isn't it? What is the amount of capital that they're looking for? And how much is minus the amount of collateral that they have available to pledge. And that either equals a surplus or a shortfall. And if they have a surplus, great. We don't need the collateral support program because they have enough collateral, in other words. But if they have a shortfall, a deficit, then we can quickly identify what is needed. Once we know what the shortfall is, we can create a portfolio excuse me, a valid, potentially income-producing accounts receivables, and we transfer the ownership. So there's literal legal documentation. So we're transferring ownership. Because again, this is not, for the third time, a gray wink-wink type of relationship. Oh, just put this down on your balance sheet and it'll look good. Well, if the client doesn't really have ownership of that asset, that's fraudulent. And the last thing that the client wants to do, you want to do, we want to do, is something that's fraudulent. That's bad. But can we literally transfer ownership over to them? Of course, just like you could sell me your car or you could sell me your house. And once we've completed the paperwork for that, now it's my car or it's my house or vice versa. So we will do the paperwork, complete the paperwork, developed by attorneys, of course, to be able to transfer title, transfer ownership. So it really is theirs. It's really real assets and it's really, really theirs. We sell collateral for 10 cents on the dollar. And you are more than welcome to essentially be a reseller if you want. You don't have to pay anything. But the point is, then we split that. So you would charge the client 10%. You're buying it from us at 5%. So what's the math? You've marked it up 5%. So off of each portfolio, remember I said you'd make $5,000 per client. Technically, you could make more than that. It's $5,000 per portfolio. But if you're selling the portfolio to the client, 100,000 portfolio for 10 cents on the dollar, they're paying 10,000. And yes, we can get financing for that. They don't have to pay for it up front. So you're selling to the client for 10,000, but you're buying it from us for half of that, 5,000. The math, of course, is you just made $5,000 by flipping that portfolio. As a percentage, that's crazy good, right? You're doubling your money. And you don't have to risk it because you wouldn't need to get a collateral to resell to the client until you have a client ready to buy it. So, I mean, just imagine if you could go buy real estate and you could be guaranteed of flipping it and doubling your money, man, you'd be a real estate mogul. What if you could go out and buy stocks or cryptocurrency with the guarantee that if you bought that stock, it would double in value? You could double your money the next day, and you'd be out there buying stocks. Well, that's not true for real estate or stocks. That's too good to be true, but that is exactly true here. Next question, how is collateral income producing? All portfolios are created with one or more accounts receivable files that are true monies owed, and there's contractual terms with daily late fees. The typical daily late fee is $50 a day. So let's say that the client bought a portfolio of $100,000. Let's say it had 10 accounts in it, just using simple math, for $10,000 each. So then each day, each of those 10 accounts goes up because the people haven't paid, the debtors haven't paid the client. And so these daily late fees of $50 a day is increasing the amount of money owed to the debtor and increasing the value of the portfolio to the debt buyer, the client in this case. And so after 1 month, let's just do the math on a per month basis. So if you have one account, the client doesn't pay in 30 days, then there's 30 times 50, that's $1,500 of late fees. But there's 10 accounts. So each month, that portfolio is increasing by 15%. Any of you that are knowledgeable about the stock market would know if you could earn 15% in a year, that is a really good year. These debt buyers, the clients that are getting the debt portfolios, the Collateral Support Program, their money is increasing by 15% per month. If you annualize that out, that's obviously 180%. So it's extraordinary. So this is really built off the model called debt buying. Debt buying and debt selling is big business. Typically, it's with mortgages, defaulted auto loans, even defaulted credit card debts. But there's other instruments that can be used in these debt portfolios. And that's what you and I are doing and helping people do. Is financing available? The next question. Yes, we have financing available. The client only needs to pay a $1,000 down payment. The rest can be financed, and there's no minimum credit score. They don't even have to verify their income. Next question is, why would a small business want to participate? Well, I think we covered that. I don't really need to read this. The bottom line is there are those three benefits that we discussed. First of all, we strengthen their balance sheet to resolve the collateral shortfall. Secondly, it improves their liquidity on paper because accounts receivable is considered a cash equivalent. And thirdly, the money grows. All right, what sizes of loans can be obtained? Well, we have Alfred on the line here, and he's in the process of buying a $10 million portfolio. I know this is 20, but it's the closest number I have. But our typical clients are usually just getting portfolios of 100,000. We've sold multi-million-dollar portfolios to law firms that wanted to buy it and use it to do similar things. So it's very credible, very legal, very ethical. All right, so who has questions on the relevance, the process, any concerns about the Collateral Support Program? Quincy says, wow, this is powerful. Thank you, Quincy. I agree. It's all about you and I being technical advisors, right? We do three things. We help clients build financial literacy. A lot of them didn't even know that they could supplement their collateral, their assets like this. So just educating them is powerful. Secondly, we help them build a lender compliant loan package, which means that they are thirdly credible enough on paper to get approved. And you're going to run into some clients that the type of capital, the amount of capital that they're looking for, they frankly don't qualify for yet. And that's okay, because you and I as technical advisors, that's what we are very good at, is fixing the problems, is getting them from where they're at to where they need to be. Think about home remodeling, right? You can go out and buy an investment property, but let's say the commode, the toilet doesn't work. Oh my gosh, is it the end of the world? No, what do? You fix the toilet. You probably would have a plumber come in, look inside the tank, look at the mechanism, see if it's working. Maybe it needs to be replaced. Maybe something needs to be fixed. That's what you and I do. You and I are plumbers, I guess, in that analogy. We fix people's plumbing. We fix the problems that's keeping them from being credible enough to get the funding that they want. All right, so the next question is, when I have clients that go through the program, is this a must? Well, no. So that's my fault. If any of you took away that I was indicating that this is a must-have, that's not true at all. First of all, there's many clients that don't have a collateral shortfall. So why would they want? Well, I mean, they could still want to do it because of making money from it, the growth. But we're looking, as I mentioned, at balance sheets and personal financial statements to objectively identify if they have a collateral shortfall. And if they do, then we would recommend this. So certainly it's not. So not everyone needs it. And then even if they need it, they don't have to do it. I was talking to Ryan. Ryan's not on the training this morning. He's in Florida. He's a realtor. We were going through his financials yesterday. He has a collateral shortfall. And he frankly decided to not do this. He doesn't want to do the collateral shortfall, collateral support program. Well, that greatly restricts his access to capital. You know, we're not going to be able to get the same type of funding that we would if he had enough collateral, but that's the client's choice. It's not forced upon them. But you and I know if we make recommendations to help the client get from where they're at to where they need to be, and the client says no, then that can, in fact, invalidate the $100,000 guarantee. Look at your agreement to see how that's written. All right, so let's move forward. But the other question was what percent? I would say, and I don't know the statistic for sure, but I'd say over 90% of the clients that have a collateral shortfall, in fact, and if presented properly, will enroll in the collateral support program. So nearly everyone, because it's very objective. It's not like trying to upsell them on something or pitch them something or get them just to pay more money. Number one, it's an asset that's worth more than what they're paying for. But secondly, it's objectively needed. All right, let's see here. And so the question is, as I mentioned here, let me make it larger. So we normally put the portfolios in $100,000 increments, and that works well. And so you're exactly right. Some clients will depend upon their capital raise and their collateral shortfall. Some will just need one portfolio. Some will need multiple portfolios. All right, so then Paulie has a question. So Paulie's got a client that's looking at buying a fleet of vehicles. So that would fall into the other category. If we're buying real estate or equipment, then typically the real estate or the equipment would serve as collateral. Therefore, we would not need this. But if we also needed working capital along with the trucks or the real estate, then collateral would be important. So if we're buying tangible assets, in many cases, those tangible assets serve as collateral. So then this is not needed. Hopefully that makes sense to everyone. But Paulie also asked, what's the first step? So the first step is not really part of our discussion today, but it's just always the same, right? Get the client under contract. Get the client under contract. You're a white label partner. You have an editable template in your white label partner Dropbox. Step one, get the client under contract. Step one, get the client under contract. Step one, get the client under contract. Step two is get the funding app completed. Upload those into your white label Dropbox. Let us know via text or email. We'll go get them their first tranche of financing right away. Everybody will get approved for something, some more than others. And then we will be able to proceed with the process. All right, next question. Jean-Charles asked, can we help clients in other countries? Yeah, with the Collateral Support Program, this is available globally. Yes, sir. Not just domestically. And we have a question about, so we are again selling the debt portfolios, which is very clearly identified and also in the agreement, of course, for 10 cents on the dollar. Now, technically we're going to sell it to you if you're going to do the reselling for 5 cents on the dollar, and you could mark it up or not mark it up if you didn't want to. But normal retail rate is 10 cents on the dollar. So obviously 10 cents on the dollar of 100,000. You can see the math there. So is this meant to be a distraction? No. Hopefully it actually makes you feel more empowered that you and I have the ability to help clients that otherwise couldn't get approved to get approved through legal, ethical, proven strategies. That's the key takeaway. Do you have to become a debt buyer yourself? No, you don't have to be. But if you want to buy these portfolios at 5 cents on the dollar, mark it up and resell it to your clients for 10 cents on the dollar, you're absolutely welcome to. But do you have to do that? No. I'm not here to sell you anything or recruit you in anything. And frankly, if I were you, I wouldn't even consider buying a portfolio if I didn't have a buyer already lined up. Then it makes sense, right? So you buy it for 5 cents on the dollar, you sell it for 10 cents on the dollar, and bam, you've made 100% markup instantly or within 24 hours. Okay, who else has questions, comments, concerns? So big picture is what you and I do is help small businesses get qualified for the funding they need. Some will be able to objectively identify that they have a collateral shortfall. If they do have a collateral shortfall, you and I have a resource that can help alleviate that, and it's called the Collateral Support Program, and it's designed in such a way that you're able to monetize that. This is just one, as Quincy just stated, this is one of the tools in our tool chest, but it's a unique tool. It's something that's not commonly available because what happens normally? Normally, a client is told, you're denied for the loan. You don't qualify for the loan. You don't have enough collateral for the loan. Now get the fuck out of here. That's typically what happens. What are you and I saying? Hey, it doesn't look like you qualify yet on paper. No worries, buddy. We're going to fix that for you so you are credible enough on paper, and then we'll proceed to funding application. That's a heck of a lot better story. You and I are solving people's problems rather than them just getting declined because they don't qualify. Okay, Jean-Charles asked, collateral required by lenders. Well, that's a little bit difficult of a question, but it's a good question. I think what I want to convey to you, Jean-Charles, is that, and it's a common mistake, and it's actually what Ryan had proposed yesterday. So if the client individually or their business has assets, but there's already a lien against them, then those assets typically can't be used because they're already committed for. So like in Ryan's example, he moved, I think it was from Nevada to Florida, bought a home, has seen the home increase in value. So he has positive equity in the home. And so Ryan's like, hey, I've got equity in my home. Isn't that great? Well, unless you're going to cash out on that through like a HELOC, home equity loan of a line of credit, then that equity is real and it improves the client's balance sheet, a personal financial statement, but it doesn't serve as collateral for a business loan because there's already a loan against it, right? There's a lien against it, the primary mortgage holder. So what doesn't typically count would be assets owned by the business that already have a lien against them. Hopefully that makes sense. We've got a couple more questions here before we end it today. The landing pages are available for those of you that are doing recruitment. So those of you that are RVPs, the landing pages, my understanding, are available. Just send me a note and I can get you connected to that. So that's not a problem. And he says, I've been in and around banking for 20 years and never seen this. This is a game changer. And it is. And it's not that we really, well, we're no smarter than the average bear, but what we've done is we've taken something that is common out in the marketplace. Debt buying and debt selling, big deal, big deal. I'm watching Bloomberg right now, and they were just talking right before the Zoom about big debt portfolio sales. So that's normal in the banking and finance world. But what you and I offer is it broken down on little bite-sized pieces where it can be used by the average small business owner to be able to alleviate a collateral shortfall. They don't have to go buy a $10 million portfolio or a $100 million portfolio. Most debt buying and selling are large deals, very large, like what Alfred's doing. Alfred said nothing less than 10 million. He wouldn't consider less than a $10 million portfolio. Well, Alfred's a big player. But for the average small business owner, they're just simply looking to solve the problem, alleviate the collateral shortfall. So that's why we break it down into $100,000 increments. All right, so hopefully that's helpful. If you have questions, comments, concerns, let us know. And we will be back with you tomorrow morning, same time, same place. Let us know if we can assist you, and make sure you scheduled your one-on-one. Crucial, we should have one-on-ones each week with our white label partners and RVPs. Thanks, bye.